Feel free to chime in if you have questions as we go. Otherwise, I'm going to kind of breeze through it so we can keep our time to a minimum today, if that's okay. Moving on with current state of e-learning. Our current enrollment numbers are here. We just did it kind of like last month with the enrollment by state. Kind of can see where everybody is. Our e-learning distribution has changed a little bit, but we're still concentrated about in the same different locations. Our enrollment fluctuates every month, as a lot of you guys know, just based on different completions and different enrollments. Moving on down to the next one, our current enrollment, we had a good bit of enrollment this month, and that included a good number of enrollments. We had 15 enrollments in Louisiana this month. So that rose those numbers there. So we did see a good jump in enrollments in the month of January. Into our standard operating procedures. When we have a program inquiry, when somebody calls in, which is usually the case of what happens, the first question we ask somebody is, where are you calling us from? And that happens with email as well. You know, we ask, what state are you calling us from? And if we have a state that has a chapter working with us, the first thing we do is direct that student to the state association. That's just the quickest way for us to handle that. That encourages that PHCC membership. We're trying to keep that collegial atmosphere going, and we're trying to keep that completion rate going. We want a state chapter to have the access to that student. We also do that if we know you have active apprenticeship programs at all, even if they're not e-learning related at all. We don't want to compete with that. It's not our goal to try to undermine any programs that exist. And we do know that in some states, e-learning is not recognized by the state. So we know that we need to get these people into the hands of our chapter execs. So that is our first goal, is just to ask the question, where are you from? And then we try to get them to the right hands. And so that is our first question. And we don't even ask if they're a member, because honestly, if it's the student calling, most of the time they don't know. So we just, where are you from, and we hand them off. So if it's a state where we know we don't have a PHCC chapter that's active, then we deal with them. But otherwise, we send them right out. So on the other hand, if we don't have that active program, we send them to their State Department of Labor next to make sure that the program meets state requirements. And that is also on our generic application form. If any of you have ever seen that form, it just says, it's your responsibility to make sure this course is accepted. We don't want somebody to be paying for a course that's not going to be accepted. It's a waste of money. I hate for somebody to throw money away on an education program that's not going to be useful. And if the student works for a company that's not PHCC affiliated, we do charge non-member prices. Our goal is, again, not just registering students willy-nilly. We want to push states so that there's more support and structure. We want to encourage membership in all the chapter levels. We have the same goals as the chapters. So we want to get this program fostering membership and back and forth. That is our goal as well.
Mary Beth.
Does anybody have any? Yep.
This is Jim. Just a point here and kind of a general question, I guess. At our board meeting last weekend, our board of directors directed me and the gentleman in charge of our apprenticeship program to set us up such that it will be a member-only program. In other words, they are saying to us, we don't want a non-member price. We want you to have to be a member of PHCC North Carolina in order to access our program. Reason being, obviously, we're keeping our margins next to nil, and so membership helps to offset the cost of our administration of it. Is that common, and how does that play out in your world as far as our interaction with you, or does it?
It really doesn't have an effect for us. We keep a spreadsheet so you guys know of how each state operates. So I really like for you guys to communicate that thing with me, that kind of thing. We keep a spreadsheet just called eLearning Chapter Partners. And it tells me everything you guys do within your program. So what your pricing is, whether or not you fulfill textbook orders, any specifics that are quirky about your program, anything that I need to know or that any of our staff need to know about your program is just in that spreadsheet. And when somebody calls, I will know that you don't sell it to non-members. It says members only or member and non-member. I can tell from that. It's a real quick look. And if you don't sell it to members, that's okay. And we're totally fine with that. We're not going to undercut you in any way. I'm not going to sell that course in North Carolina at all if I know you're selling it. And I'm going to send everybody to you. I'm not going to sell it.
That.
I'm just going to say the only way that course is sold in the state of North Carolina is through North Carolina PHCC. And how you sell it,
we appreciate that. Thanks. Yeah, thank you.
So, yeah, we're not going to undercut you. That's a big deal because there are several states, quite a number, that don't have a non-member price. So we will not undercut you in any way.
Thank you, and that's good. Yeah, thank you, and that's good to know that there are other states that are also doing this. So thank you. That's helpful.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, it would only hurt all of us. So we won't do that. So yeah, that question has come up before, and so that's why we keep that spreadsheet, just so we're aware. And because there will be people who will try to push that, and we just won't do it. So that it's always going to get deflected right back to the state chapter. That I'm sorry, we can't sell it. You have to go to North Carolina.
So also as part of these calls too, it's kind of like building out the communication pattern so that we're all extremely transparent on that we're going to have the same procedure over and over again. So if they call and they get Mary Beth, she's going to give them the same answer. If they call and get Angela, they're going to get the same answer. Or Maureen, we're all going to give the same answers. So we just want to be extremely transparent in how we're going to communicate going forward.
All right. Any other questions about inquiries that come in? Wonderful. Okay, enrollment. This is always the fun part. We have new applications. We are working on DocuSign, and Angela's going to cover that later. Please remember to submit the new application. We are double checking information and contact information changes. They do happen a lot. These guys move a lot, and they also change their emails a lot. So if you can do us a favor, submit the new application. And note on there, the new course fee is $875. We had originally talked about breaking it down into an admin fee and a course fee. It caused a lot of confusion. So we're not doing that. We're calling it's a flat $875 per student per year course fee. It is a flat fee on our side for the course. It just is a flat fee. And when we get into the new learning management system and we start, I'll talk about that in another minute because that's going to get confusing if I say it now. But we're going to be it's an $875 flat course fee on our side. With that said, as we're talking about enrollment fees, I'm going to talk about that on the next slide. I'm sorry, I'm going to confuse you. Please also note that we can't take credit cards through email any longer for security reasons. If you don't have a credit card on file, we'll work with you to get our customer care department to have that in place. We'd rather not have those going through email for security reasons. And also, please remember to send correspondence through our new academy@naphcc.org address. All 3 staff members monitor that address, so the right person will get back to you through it. And so one of us might not be in that day. That way, the right person can get back with you. On the enrollment fees, I added this slide today. That's why I was thinking all that information. The new course enrollment fee, again, is $875. Again, textbooks are no longer provided. Almost everybody has told me what they're doing about textbook fulfillment. I think I'm pretty good on that. If you haven't yet told me, please do. and I'll be following up with everybody in the next week or so just to make sure I have that all locked in. Our new LMS, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes, is likely going to offer us some flexibility in payment plans, such as installment options. In conversation I had with Tracy in California, we talked a lot about subscription pricing, and that model really won't work in California. Their Department of Labor is challenging at best, and as she and I talked about it, it really could give us a lot of heartburn nationally, and there are some really good reasons why we shouldn't do subscription pricing on an apprenticeship program. And the more she and I talked about it, the more I realized she's probably really right on that. So but we really want to have that way to keep the cost of the course from being an obstacle for someone. So we're trying to find a way to offer some flexibility in payment plans that will still allow us to package the course cost. So we're going to try to work on that, but with different state rates going in there, we still need to think that through. So we're trying to think through how that might best work, and we're going to need to talk to everybody about that. So that's going to be something we're going to need to all talk about in the next few months and see if there's flexibility in ways of installment plans and that kind of thing. Just food for thought, but we're not 100% sure how we're going to deal with that. So it's out there. We can think about it and see what might work. In terms of additional fees, there are some new additional fees that might occur for students' employers in the program, but these are on a case-by-case basis. The first is a new transfer fee. This is brand new to us. Our courses forever and ever, amen, have been non-refundable and non-transferable. We now will allow student enrollments to be transferred. So, for example, if an employer puts a new first-year apprentice in the program and the apprentice drops out within 30 days, this employer now can transfer that enrollment to another student. This is where that administrative fee went. We'll let him do it for the $125 fee instead of paying another course fee, which we used to do. They now can just transfer. All we're doing is collecting our administrative cost to move a new student into the old student's place. So we will do that for a transfer fee, and we'll let them have a 60-day window to do that. We can move a new student. That way no work has been completed, generally speaking, and we're not losing a lot of time invested in another student. So we are allowing a transfer fee, and we will reevaluate that. It might become a 90-day window. We'll just kind of have to see how that plays out. So that transfer fee we have recently added. Hopefully that will help alleviate some heartburn on the part of employers, as we do still have a non-refundable course fee structure. Our reinstatement fee is $125. That's when students are withdrawn or dropped for a 90-day period of inactivity. That has been there forever as well. We are adding an audit course fee. If an employer wishes to follow along with their students, there's a fee of $299. We had talked about this previously. This will not be available till we have our new learning management system with unlimited seats. We're going to be operating on limited space until July. So we're going to have that audit course fee available when we have our new learning management system. Until then, we're going to have to just kind of hold on tight. And then the extension fee is for students who go over the 12-month time limit. They can extend their course another 6 months for $250. So it's seat space for another 6 months. So we're going to try to help keep these guys moving along, and we'll work on that here in just a moment. Any questions so far? All righty, quiet today. Okay, book orders. Our book orders are being placed through Cengage Learning. We've been working with chapters to transition the book orders to take us out of the middle. Everybody we've worked with so far to get with Amy Wallace, I'm pretty sure, has been taken care of. Is everybody set up, and has anybody had any problems with that process so far?
not so far. As long as the books that we just ordered arrive at the employer on time, we'll be in good shape.
Okay. They're usually pretty good. As long as you go through Amy, that's the one thing I'm going to try to emphasize to everybody. Every time something goes through the warehouses directly, it gets messed up. Or if it doesn't go straight through Amy, for some reason it gets messed up. The names tend to change when you go into the warehouses, but if you stay straight with Amy, it doesn't get messed up. That's why I'm always very emphatic about, please just send it straight to Amy, because she won't mess it up.
We don't use the email address that's on the order form?
Just amy.wallace. Just send straight to her. I wouldn't, the stuff that's on the order form, every once in a while the people change and then the ball gets dropped. I just don't trust it.
Again?
Pardon?
What's her email again? Amy.Wallace?
Yeah, amy.wallace@cengage.com. She's our account exec there, and she's great.
Yeah, I've got her in my email. I just wanted to know what I needed to start it off.
Yeah, I don't send anything to anybody else there.
Okay.
Because I get phone calls all the time when we get into August from schools that have tried to go through the other route and something gets messed up. So, all right, the last big topic before the learning management system is our notices and reporting. The notices and reporting are probably the biggest thorn in our side from a time management standpoint. And this is a process we talked a little bit about previously, and that is the warning notice process. When the student is inactive for 60 days in the course, meaning they haven't turned in a unit test of any sort, we send them a warning notice. It says, hey, you've got 30 days to turn in a unit test or we're going to drop you because you've been inactive. We send that out. It's usually first day of the month we do that. So it's pretty much, they can be almost 90 days inactive before they get that notice. It's sort of, so when I look on February 1st, it will be anybody who hasn't turned anything in since, I'm going to go back to November 1. So anything November 1 or earlier. So if they turned it in November 2nd, I'm going to leave them alone. So March 1, they could have turned in something November 2nd, and it could have almost been 90 days before they really get a notice. It can be longer than 60, in other words. But we do that. So we send them the notice on the 1st, and they have 30 days to turn something in. And we have been sending a notice mid-month reminding them, because half the time they haven't done it yet mid-month. But this month's notices that went mid-month said, this is the last time you're going to get a mid-month warning notice, a mid-month reminder. So we're trying to stop the nudging. Next month, we'll send that again. And because it takes a few months of those, this is the last month ones, because not everybody's going to get in that cycle. We'll do that a couple more months, and then nobody's going to get mid-month notices. So by April, we're not going to be sending mid-month notices. Then by July, we're not going to do any more drop-in warning notices. Once we get into that's when the new learning management system comes out. They're just going to have 12 months to get their course done. That's when that new management system kicks in. So what the plan for us to do is we're going to be working with the chapter program managers. We're going to provide monthly reports. We do those first week of the month. And in those, you can see on a far right column if somebody got a warning notice. There's a date. And if they did, we're going to ask for our chapter managers to help us nudge these students. You reach out to the employers and say, hey, your student's behind. Help us nudge these guys and help us keep them going. And it gives us the touch points. It's going to help with the accountability. There's a side of me as a teacher, and a very retired teacher, that says these are adults. I shouldn't have to nudge them to do what they're supposed to do. This is post-secondary. that no one should, if the expectation in a course is that they get a certain amount done in a certain amount of time, that they should do it. And, you know, there's a side of me that says that these are adults and they should be able to do this. And you know, how much babying of them do we need to do? So, you know, at what level of accountability are we going to hold them? But at what level of service do we want to provide on the flip side? So I'm going to see if managers want to do that, want to help reach out to the employers. And yeah, as you know these guys better than we do. You know, it's right now they're getting an email from people like me who they've never met, and it may or may not be effective. So hopefully we can start reaching out to them a little more and getting a little more contact out there and get these guys moving through the program.
But Mary Beth, it's Ellen. In July, there will not be any notices sent. No warning letters, no.
We're going to work on something that in the new system that's going to sense something where they haven't logged in and periodically send, hey, don't forget to log in and do some stuff. So we're working on that, but we don't know how much of that will be developed as fast as we're developing the system.
Okay. But we'll still get our monthly report, so when I open it up,
you will.
That nobody from, you know, Bernhard, you know, there's 15 guys who didn't do anything that month, then at least I know and can send them the report and say, you know, nobody did anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
So with the new system, just kind of to interject, it's a little bit different, whereas now where you get a warning notice from me and it's to the student, it's copied, you know, it copies a whole bunch of people. That'll just go away, and instead it'll just come from, like, we'll send it to you, and then you can communicate that. So then you guys can control the dialogue between the employer, because you may have arrangements, or you know when someone's sick, and again, they don't know who I am, and we just want to make sure that we are making it as easy as possible for the students, and it actually feels very kind of like collegial and very like neighborhood, it's like a cohort of people rather than, you know, the stranger from the sky sending them.
I like the stranger in the sky threatening
What?
them.
No.
Every now and again, yeah.
Like Terminator. Yeah. Skynet. Well, you know, with the new system too, as we start talking about the LMS development, there's some really cool things that reporting can do, and we're happy to build out some reports. I mean, I can build those things, but we just kind of wanted it to, you know, where we've had some people, multiple people, we just wanted to streamline the communication to where it was, you know, you would talk to the employer because you guys know each other, whereas, and you know, them calling us and then they call you too, and then there's a whole bunch of calling, and it just seems to eat up a lot of time, and we just wanted to make it as streamlined as possible.
Mm-hmm. But you and
if you like the stranger in the sky, I mean, that's okay.
I'm gonna threaten. You don't want the email from them. But you had mentioned, and I'll just ask this point because there is a way to tell if they never ever even went into the system, correct? And that'll be the same in the new one. Because I think I had a couple people that never ever even logged on, which my employers have asked me about that. Have they even looked? And there's a way to see that.
We can write all of those reports.
Okay.
And we'll make sure you get those because they are, I mean, once we transition to this, a lot of the reporting is ideally will become very automated. And so with that being said, at some point later down the road, I know that Mary Beth and the group has talked about is that we'll individually work with you. That's part of this whole transition thing is I will work with each one of you to write the reports that you need.
Okay. Thank you.
And then we'll work through it.
So I think that's all I had on these, and I think we're into the new learning management system. So that's you, Angela.
Oh,
that's your language.
That's my language. Okay, so part of what we're doing and the reason that we're trying to make this such a formal process, it's a change management process, because we're moving from multiple systems into a new system. So we want to be as transparent as possible when we're looking through the project timeline, because there are going to be lots of changes, and we just want to make sure that we work together to get this done. So as part of this, you get to hear all of the gory details about this LMS development system. So right now, we had gone to the tech conference in December, and so I actually, as of last week, finished the request for proposal, and I'm going to submit it to several vendors. And so what that basically is where I go out and say, these are all the things that we want. Does your system do that? And they send it back. And then after that, we'll be the target return week is February, and so at that point, we will actually start scheduling demos, and that's why we'll start working towards the new system. So as part of that, we are going to have to get a new payment gateway. So the back-end system is actually going to change. This will not impact you in any way. Just know that we're looking kind of for the future, and that while we're building out all of these technologies, we're looking far ahead strategically. So this is for a 5-10 year window. So we've identified a new payment gateway in that, and so we're working through that right now. Cindy and I are. So DocuSign, which is going, as we've all talked about, is this whole paperless issue. DocuSign is basically something that will start sending out applications, and as part of that, a lot of the stuff that we talk about, we don't have things in place, such as like terms and conditions of use of the system, liability waivers. We release a lot of information to people without having anything in writing. So what I'm working on is like a bigger kind of application package that will include those things, like terms and conditions of the system, that you can't transfer seats, and that we release information to certain people and that kind of stuff. And like a syllabus waiver, we'll actually have something signed. So we're just kind of getting more documentation in place saying that, but with this, it'll just be a link to where they can actually go through and sign it. So we don't want any paper on your desk. We want to do it all digitally, and so I'm working on developing that process out right now. With that being said, we're going to start the integration with our current CRM with, I don't know if anybody knows what NetForum is, I'm sure you do, but you guys use it to get into the PHCC side. So we're actually going to build out the certificate process so we can get some extremely robust reporting. This will actually aid in a lot of quicker reporting issues and queries. So what we'll start doing is I'm building out this certification unit, and so that's actually going to take those people, we can actually move them in, and that's where we can get that meaningful data that we can actually start writing white papers around, or larger presentations, news articles, those types of things. Is we'll get that data in one system so we actually can look at it over time. And then finally, if you've noticed kind of when we go through these things, you've seen like some new colors, some new things. We're actually testing out a complete rebrand of the system in the eLearning product. Whereas it moved from Home Study to eLearning, we're actually looking at in the new system calling it PHCC Academy. And so at this point we're trying to change it to a more academic look. So if you've seen kind of the darker colors, the navies, the crimsons, the silvers, the charcoals, that's kind of what we're trying to give it a more academic feel in a non-threatening way. So we actually have purchased the domain name PHCC Academy. So when we'll start being able to do some really nice marketing around that as well. Does anybody have any questions? I can go into super gory detail about LMSs if you like. I'm sure you guys are all glazed over at this point.
So is the DocuSign application we're sending, that's for the state program manager to send to you that I've got 2 people and I'm going to send you 2 forms enrolling them because I've enrolled them on my end?
Right. So what we'll do is I will work with everybody, and I realize that we kind of all have a different process, but basically it's just to make sure that we have the same documents in place. And a lot of that's around liability, terms and conditions and stuff. So I will work with each one of you. I recognize you all have different application process, and I'm not going to interrupt that.
Okay.
It's just making sure that so whatever documents you already currently have, we'll package around it.
Okay.
So are there any other?
This is
Yeah, I
easy
know,
today.
this is a very, yeah, it's very easy.
One question I have is if we have a couple of people who want to enroll before July, is there still system capacity to put it on, put people in?
There is right now, yes.
Okay. But if it's, I don't think I'm going to have Bernhard putting another 20 in until, I don't know. I might have 20, I might not. I was hoping to push everything towards August, September, just to work through digesting the ones I have for the first year. But there would be room then to put on 20 before then if I had them?
Yeah, right now there's room.
Okay.
And that could change, but right now there's room.
Okay. I'm not pushing it until the summer because I just have to, I mean, I've got, out of my 21 people, I've got probably, what, 6, 7 that haven't even opened it yet. So I got my hands full with what I have before I start loading more on there.
Yeah.
So Angela and Mary Beth, with this limited number of seats, is that a limitation per year or with your system as a whole? In other words, we have a number of guys that are at year 1. We just had 4 move to year 2. Is the number of year 2 seats separate from the number of year 1 seats?
It's system as a whole.
Aggregate. Yeah, it's an aggregate. So
It's
you're
an
okay.
aggregate.
So basically, yeah, so as long as they stay in the system, they're fine. It's the additions to the system that's new in the pipeline that would be, and as long as we all work together to help get them out, and that's why we're so sensitive to the drop notices and the delays, is because we are getting a lot of people that are timing out, and we want to make room for those people that are getting through until July.
Okay. Okay. So, so just food for thought along that very line. So basically what you're saying is that once a guy enters the system, year 1 student, he gets a seat. That seat, he maintains that seat that's been paid for. As long as he's in the system, that seat is allocated to him year 1, 2, 3, 4, right? One of the comments that came out of the particular company that just, for us, that just had these 4 students move from year 1 to year 2, those 4 students completed year 1 in about 6 months, 7 months. Okay, so they really powered through it. They obviously could have probably tested out of that first year, but he felt like they would get good information. So the situation that he's therefore in is he's paid for basically 12 months worth of effort for them for the whole program. They've used it for 6 months, and now he's got to pay for another year. Are you following me? Mm-hmm. So he was actually kind of intrigued by this idea of a subscription service, such that if it took 7 months for them to finish the program, then he paid for 7 months for that year, and then he started them the next year. So it was he saw that as a benefit. And what I'm hearing you say is that once you purchase the seat, I don't know whether there's an annual renewal cost to you for that seat, but regardless, he's seeing that as that. So I would say our request would be, as you consider the move to either not subscription and installment, or in some way structure this, that not only do you include the penalization for renewal after 12 months if you don't complete it in time, but there's some way to reward the guys that actually are pushing through and getting it done, because that benefits our industries as a whole. Okay?
No, well, that's a great, yeah, definitely. There should be no economic disincentive for finishing early.
Right, right. That's my thought, and that was, like I say, a point that he he saw great benefit in for him, not only his own guys but other folks too. And you know, we're trying to help students power through and get the education they need so that they're productive as soon as possible. So without shortchanging.
I think what we're hearing, yeah, I think what we're hearing too is there's kind of two sides, and I think that as the nice thing about a new system and getting away with one that's kind of more designed for what it's for is that we can partially design that way. So I can, you know, when we're designing the system, we can design one way for subscription and then the other way, but we just kind of need to know who's kind of in the same boat. We can't do a lot of customization, but we could probably do a bell.
Okay.
That's good feedback.
Thank you.
I love the subscription model. Does anybody else have any feedback on their states or and kind of how you'll use it, or?
Everybody had a turkey sandwich for lunch, and the tryptophan kicked in.
Yeah, clearly, Jim, you did not.
Nope.
All good.
Yeah, I'll just mention one thing that we're doing, and it's because I'm a small staff office of one. I'm kind of pushing for quarterly enrollment, just so on my end I don't have somebody starting the third week of January, somebody the second week of February, somebody in March. So I'm kind of pushing for enrollment windows. So December was an enrollment starting January 1st, and then we'll enroll in March to start in April. So I'm kind of doing it like that. So I've got 4 windows that we can aggregate the people to, just to try to create some sort of organization to how I'm going to have a bunch of people in the system, different years, different times. So I'll let you know how it works.
No, that's great. And you know, one of the really interesting things about this new system is that no matter how each one of you use them, the system will still work. So whereas you're doing 4 quarters, if some states do just 1 year, the system will still work the same. So we'll have some real flexibility in how we can encourage other state chapters to create programs or grow programs. And that's the end game for all of us.
Sounds good.
Cool.
Thank you.
All right.
So we've set
Our
the
next
next
call?
meeting up. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, our next call then we set up for next month is February 21 from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern. So it's also on a Tuesday, and we'll knock it out that day.
Okay.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you all.
All right, thanks.
Ready.
Thanks, everybody. See ya.
Bye, guys.
Bye.